Guys, welcome to Sniper Sundays. I hope you're all well and had a great weekend. And for all those in the UK, I hope you're having a great bank holiday weekend. So let's just have a look at the fundamentals for this week. As always, quite important, or quite is very important. And what we have this week is we have a G7 meeting, which is actually happening today, and then that follows on to tomorrow. So we need to be quite aware of this because the G7 meeting is a meeting between the not world leaders, but from the leaders from 7 of the industrialized nations: Canada, Italy, France, UK, US. So members are there, like presidents and prime ministers. For instance, President Trump is there. Boris Johnson's from the UK is there. So they're having a talks, and some of the stuff has been leaked out into the media. Just things, you know what President Trump is like. By now, he tweets whenever he feels like it. So some of these things may be taking effect on the market open and how the market reacts. So we need to be on the ball on market open straight away to see how price is reacting. So that is today, and then that also follows on till tomorrow on Monday. Now, as I said, it's a bank holiday in the UK tomorrow. So sometimes when it's bank holiday, you see a little bit less movement. But given that we have these G7 meetings, and it's only a bank holiday in the UK and nowhere else, we can imagine that there's going to be quite a busy day tomorrow as well. So I think for market open and tomorrow, we should see quite a lot of volatility in the market. So we need to be on the ball and looking for capitalizing on any trades. There was big movements on Friday, which we'll cover in a moment, and they were they contributed to a big move in the market on Friday, and we'll be looking at how we can basically take that to our advantage on Monday with the trades. So Monday we've got that G7 meeting. Tuesday we've got some news out for the US dollar, consumer confidence. Wednesday we've got oil inventories. Thursday, Friday we have a bit more. We have New Zealand dollar, Australian dollar, US dollar, and then Canadian dollar and Aussie dollar again on Friday. So Thursday, Friday a little bit more busier, but nothing too major to worry about. We have to keep it in mind. But the big thing is the G7 summit, or the G7 meeting, which is happening today and tomorrow. So let's see how that can affect the market. Now let's look at the dollar index first of all. So Friday, what we saw was a massive sell-off on the US dollar. This was due to there was also another meeting on Friday. And Mr. Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, came out and said some comments that did not help the US dollar, and we saw a big sell-off from 3 p.m. where he came out and released his comments. You can just see here, this candlestick here was literally the 3 o'clock it was 3 o'clock. Comments came out a few minutes afterwards, and then we saw a huge sell-off. So now what we can see here, and this is why candlesticks show us and price action show us so much. What we can see here is we were consolidating all week, which I highlighted during the week. What we can see here is if we highlight these bearish engulfing candles, we can see how price has literally engulfed all of this previous price action all the way back as far as the 14th of August, 15th of August. So massive, massive, massive move in one candle. So what we can see here, price action is telling us is that we were just bouncing around, consolidating, didn't know where we were going to go, waiting for the market, something to happen to move the market. And the market knew that there was the big meeting on Friday, which I highlighted last night for Sundays. And then on the meeting, bang, then we had that move. Big bearish engulfing candle, and then we just went down from there. So big sell-off on US dollar. And then when we have a weaker dollar, we have a stronger gold. Now, gold, let's immediately just remove 1 or 2 levels. What we can see here on gold is obviously we're very, very, very bullish on gold. We have been since, let's have a look at a weekly chart, all the way back since the end of May. So we've been pushing up, and you can see I've highlighted my key levels here, which are 1350, these round numbers, 1400, 1450, 1500, and then 1550 is my next level here. You can see here, just even on a weekly chart, how well we respect this level. We come up, we have some resistance, we break through, find the next one, have some support, break through, found resistance, came back, found support, broke through, found 1500, and now it looks like we're on the search to come up to 1550. Now I've highlighted this resistance level a few times, because you can see here, if we look at the bigger picture, this level of support here on the weekly, 1, 2, 3, areas that we've had really strong support on the weekly chart. So remember, everything on the higher time frame is stronger. support and resistance levels, trend lines, and candlestick confirmations. So we look like we're going to come up and test this resistance level, and this is going to be a strong resistance to try and break through. As we can see, it's held as support and resistance strongly previously. So I am looking for price to come up even higher, and from here then we can look at what might happen. Even though we're in a huge bullish market, like I always say, in order for something to continue to go up, it has to come down as a form of retracement. So we may see a bigger move down lower, maybe not next week, but a week after. It could be next week, but we might see a move back down to come down and sort of test this trend line area. So that's something to keep an eye on. We've got this daily trend line support. So we need to just keep that in mind, that outer trend line is possible to come to long term. At the moment, we are very, very bullish though. And what you can see here, we've had this bullish move, here, came down, retested this 38% retracement, and we could even pop up even as far as 1571. We could break through 1550, have a bit of a spike up to the upside. We could even come up to 1550. Very, very easily done. Now, why we're looking at long trades on this last week is, as per my Sniper Sundays, I explained to buy the dips. In the bullish market, any dip down, we're looking at taking long trades. Now, we've had this big impulsive move from here. Big impulsive move, and like I just said, any market, in order for it to go up higher, we have to see a pullback down. So we're seeing a little bit of a retracement down here, like a little bit of a channel, and then we moved up higher. Now if I just drop down to the 4 hour, here, you can see that we've just had this nice little retracement. Price has pulled back, and then once we've broken through that, we've had 1, 2, 3, broke above this trend line, as you can see here, broke back above 1500, and then we took off. Now we can also see on the daily, which was a really quite obvious trade here, just by watching price action, always looking at the daily candles, always looking at the 4 hour. As you can see here, price action. So we've broken through 1500, and then we come down to retest it, but we found support at 1492 or 93. Next day, found support again, pushed up above 1500. Came back, retested 1500, but we actually managed to slip below once again, and we found support on the Thursday at 1492 again. Then on the Friday, found support once more, and then bang, we took off. So you can see here on the daily, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then obviously we just take that across, we can see we had various support from around that level already. So we're now looking to go up higher. We have reached a form of resistance around this level here, but I do think that we're going to go higher on gold. Especially while the US and China tariff trade war tensions are still high. This could change dramatically next week with Trump or any the trade war being sorted or more news coming from it. But at the moment, it looks like short term we're going to be coming up higher, but we may even start looking at being able to take short trades from up around these levels. We could take short trades for just as much as a retracement for a couple of hundred pips, or we could see a bigger move down to come all the way back down to 1500 and lower once we achieve these levels. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on next week. Euro US dollar. So Euro US dollar, nice trade that we got into last week. I just dropped down to the 4 hour first just to highlight what we've done last week. So I highlighted here a long trade was between this 10 pip zone, and the bottom was at 1.1065. We had a nice 50 pip move up here. See this nice bullish move we had. We took 50% profit because we knew we were going to find some resistance around this area, which we did, and we dropped back down. Then you can see we found area in the support again, dropped below, fell to break below once again, and this was a nice sign to take a long trade. What also helped that was off the back of what I taught you on my webinar. If we just look here, so remember we had this fake out, push to the upside. What do? We adjust the trend line. Had this fake out, little push to the upside, we adjust the trend line, and then you can see here once again we had that fake out and we couldn't break lower and we push up to the upside. So Euro US dollar at the moment, short term, looking at it being bullish, pushing up higher. But what I am watching for is this daily trend line. That, if you remember, came across, we had this fake out to the upside before we pushed down. But I'm watching that price coming up to retest that, and I'll be watching it from here. If we can break above that resistance level, then we'll be coming to the outer trend line. If we break the outer trend line, then we'll come up to sort of this 1.1400 level. But at the moment, we'll just clear that off the chart. Let's just look at what happens on Monday. If we can come up to these levels, remember, if we find any resistance, we could still roll over, because if we look at this chart on the weekly and the daily chart, we can see overall this is still in a downtrend. We're just continually making lower highs and lower lows, swing lower highs and lower lows on the daily. So we are still overall bearish on this, but short term, we're looking at a bullish move here, as you can see here. Euro GBP highlighted this weekly trend line last week. And again, remember what I said, everything on the weekly and daily time frames are stronger than the lower time frames. So a weekly trend line is stronger than a daily and a 4 hour. So we know that this trend line here is going to be strong. So we've had 0.1, 0.2 and 0.3. Lots of you following my webinar were looking at taking long trades on that last week, which was great. But I personally just wanted to see a little bit more price from here, because you have to remember that we are short from here. So I never rush a trade. We are short. We're holding shorts on this for 220 pips. So again, price has to pull back before coming down lower. Now, what I also always say to you guys is that there's always more than one opportunity to take a trade. Never think that price is going to hit a trend line and then all of a sudden just magically just go bang and go 500 pips in the other way. It doesn't happen. We consolidate, we play around, we mess around in the areas, and there's always, if not a better opportunity to take a trade, then at least one equally as good usually. So here we're coming down, you can see we're trying to retest, we've broken through support here at 0.9100, tried to retest as resistance, haven't quite made it, look like we might push down lower, so I'm going to be watching this, but I am actually going to be watching all around this area next week. We all know that the pound is not the strongest, we know that the UK situation with Brexit and so on is very fragile, so many investors will be looking for any sort to basically sell any rallies in the British pound. So if the pound would start to weaken again, then we would see a reversal from around this area. So I'm going to be watching this and just seeing how we react around here. Have we done like what I just explained on gold? Have we just had that larger retracement? Even though we're very weak on the pound and we had this massive push up, you can still see we've had this 300 pip push to the downside, because price has to come down before going higher. So have we retraced? Are we ready to go back up? The questions that I'm looking at, we'll be looking for answers next week. You can see retracement of that 61.8%, but I'll be watching next week for some more signs around this area, some more consolidation, some more rejections on the lower time frames, and then we could possibly look at taking a long trade, aiming to come back up above 0.9100, up to 0.9200, and who knows, 0.9300 and maybe even higher. Euro AUD, similar again to what I just said about gold. We can see we had this massive bullish run up here, which we caught 1,000 pips. So what do we expect? We expect a pullback. We expect a retracement. We also caught this retracement. We caught this for 250 pips retracement. And what I was looking at here was taking another short trade on Friday, because we were starting to show some signs of weakness. So it looked like we might drop down a little bit lower. So we can see here, we just use this as a trend line. We had 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. We're having this area of consolidation, and this shows you why it's very important to move your stop loss to break even as soon as you're 30, 40 pips in profit. Last week we hit this level, came down, made 40 pips profit, came back up, came down, made 40 pips profit, but then off the back of the news and so on, we broke up higher. We're now retesting that 1.6500 resistance level. So stop loss at break even, we've got taken out twice, even though we made 80 pips, it came back out at break even. And what we can see now is we are at this resistance level 1.6500. Now, like I explained, you have to look at the bigger picture. This does look like it could just take off and go to the upside. Quite interested on this is this Fibonacci. You can see here we pulled back from sort of these levels here. I'll drop down to the 4 hour actually to try and get this a bit more accurate. And we found support at this. So guys, this 50% level here. 1, 2, 3 rejections pushed up. It looks like we might come all the way back up to 1.700, which is the extension on the Fibonacci. So watching out for that. Going to be watching at how the market opens and see if we have any little bit of a pullbacks. Really need to basically see how the market reacts after Friday. Friday's massive moves, and then the news that's coming out over the weekend on Monday. So we need to be careful. But on the bigger picture, it does look like this is going higher. So I'll be watching out for that next week. Euro NZD is a very similar situation. Massive impulsive move from the lows. Had that retracement, which we expect. So we just basically came up to that support level, resistance level 1.7500, pulled back down to 1.7250. Now it looks like we could break through 1.7500 again, and maybe even come up to 1.7750. So we need to keep an eye on that. That's what the bigger picture shows us. Fundamentals can change this. We are back up at resistance once again, but at the moment, this is just on my radar. There's no immediate trades on this. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one today. We're going to keep an eye on this over the next week. GBP USD, bullish for a while, as you all know, as I keep saying. Inverse head and shoulders here, left shoulder, head, right shoulder on the daily chart. Lovely reversal sign. So guys, remember what I said. Anything on a higher time frame is very strong. So for inverse head and shoulders or head and shoulders is a reversal sign. If it happens on a daily chart, it's even stronger. So it's a good chance that we're having a reversal. Now, I'm not going to get too excited because, as I just said, the pound is fragile to any movement, anything coming out and making this absolutely dumping. So I am keeping an eye on this 1.2250 level, which was my target originally when looking at taking longs from around the bottom. Now, if you remember, I'll just quickly jump down to the 4 hour again. What I initially said was if we could break above 1.2100, then we were looking at coming up to 1.2250. And you can see here, just finding these these key support and resistance levels here, very easy to sort of pick out there. You can see this area of support on the left. What I've explained to you guys and what you've learned is that obviously see here we can see this inverse head and shoulders, this left shoulder came down, tapped on the right shoulder, but I like to have those round figures. Price likes to react to these round figures. So you've got 1.2100 through here. You can see resistance, broke up above, came back, acted as support, morning star formation, reversal sign, 1, 2, 3. Beautiful one at that because it had that spike to the downside and then we've been pushing up higher. Now, we are back up, we've hit my target, 1.2250, over 200 pips from when I was calling longs down at the bottom here. But what we have to look is at the bigger picture, and what I'm looking at is this for next week. This daily trend line coming across, you can see here, we're about to hit that. We might run into some resistance here. We might fail to break out around here. And what this may, if this does fail to break out here, this will work along with, if this was to fail to break out and we pushed down and came down to that 1.200 level, that would also work along with Euro GBP, with this pushing up higher if we did fail to break around this level. So this is something I'm going to be watching for. We may break through and keep pushing down and our short trade just carries on going down, but it all depends on how the pound acts. If the pound fails to struggle to break above this daily trend line, then we might just see reversal. We're watching that on the lower time frames, watching for weakness. There may be a short trade and we might be able to ride this one down. So I'll be keeping an eye on that for next week. That's on my radar. GBP JPY, tricky one this because Japanese yen is heavily influenced by the trade wars and the news that comes out and so on. So here, even though the pound was quite bullish last week, we dipped back below the 130 level here and we're retesting this trend line. We're now at 0.4, 1, 2, 3. Like I said, 0.3 is the strongest. We get that boost up and that reaction off it, but we're coming down for 0.4 now. We might not be able to hold. We might see some weakness. We might see some temporary push back up higher to 1.30, but we could see this get a bit weaker and see this dump back down. So keeping this on my radar as well, seeing how the market opens and how the Japanese yen acts, but we might see a push lower and we could see this coming back down to 127.50 next week. USD CAD, a bit boring last week. We gained 80 pips from the top here, came down to 1.32500, back up to that resistance once again. Huge sell-off on the US dollar, saw this fall. I do think this could come down, but this resistance level here, we haven't had much of a push through or real attempt to try and break through, or that fake out that we often see, that last spike up to the upside. We did have it here on the low time frame, as I explained, but we do look like we might come down. If we break 1.3250, I think USD CAD could come a lot lower. But we have been consolidating for a while. Even though we had a big move on Friday, we are still kind of stuck within this sort of region. So I'm not getting too excited about this one yet. Going to keep an eye on it, again, on my watch list, but I'll see how this acts next week and see if we have any signs for us to be able to take that sniper trade and get into it. USD JPY was a big move on Friday. So we were watching this. Sorry, I've got some lines in the way here. So we were watching this, and during the week, looking at this coming down a little bit lower in order to maybe take a long trade, but then we came up to this resistance and said maybe we'll start looking at short trades. Friday, everything happened all very, very quickly. We rejected that resistance level and came down. I do think that now USD JPY could come down all the way back down to 104.100 here. Depending on how this news is affected over the weekend, and if the trade wars continue and the news from Friday that came out continues, you might just see this to just keep pushing and come down to 104 here. So that's what I'm looking at for this. There's nothing really else to look at this. We have to see how this big move plays out before we can look at taking the trade. So just going to keep an eye on this and watch how it plays out on Monday. New Zealand dollar, we sort of stayed away from this really. There's no point getting caught in trades when it's just boring and then moving from side to side, or just moving slowly. There's nothing really in this. There's some New Zealand and Aussie news coming out next week, so that might give this a little bit of a boost. We do have this nice support here, holding on the weekly. So I will be keeping an eye on it to see, can we maybe get a little bit of a push from here now that we've seen some US dollar weakness. You can see here, left shoulder, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, this sort of inverse head and shoulder formation, which is a reversal sign, like I just said. So we may see a little push up to the upside. But first, I'm just going to keep an eye on it and see what happens on Monday. We have had this like really sort of weird push down here. You can see here on the resistance. So while we're trading below here, we are open to just pushing down and coming down to the monthly key level of 0.6300. We break above, I'll look for a retest, and then I'll look at taking a long trade. So that's what keep on my radar. And Aussie dollar, again, choppy, just rubbish, nothing really that we want to get into. You can see here for weeks now, days, just really just consolidating. This is why I haven't told us to take any trades on this. Imagine taking a trade on this and then being stuck in this going up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These 4 days, barely anything happened. So we're staying away until the volume hits the market and there's a right time to trade it. Looks like we could come down to 0.6700 down here. This support level, come down and take out this wick down a little bit lower. So I'm going to stand aside and just see how this acts again on Monday, and see if there's anything that a bit more appealing for us to take a trade. And then US oil, fall off again, trade wars, US, China, heavily influencing this. 1, 2, 3, 4th rejection, big push down. We do have some support coming in through here on the daily. I do like oil, as you know, so I'm going to be watching this carefully and seeing if there's any opportunities to take a trade on this next week. Because what you also have to see on this is look at both sides of the coin. We've got a nice retracement here, but at the moment we are bearish and it looks like we could come down lower. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. Nothing too much to talk about. We need some more price action from this at the moment, but we might see a nice trade on this next week. And that's about it at the moment. So gold, as I said, a run over. I will update on market open. If there is some big moves, then I will update and we'll see what's happening in the market. But let's be vigilant for Monday with the G7 meetings and what comes out. And yeah, let's get ready for another big week. The last couple of weeks, there's been a lot more movement. So it's been good to trade. There's been more positions. We've had some really nice trades. I think next week's going to be a really, really good week because there's so much movement in the market. And that's what we need as traders. We want volume, we want volatility, we want these big moves, so we can basically get into them and ride them out. So lots and lots of setups, not immediately, but stuff that we need to sit back, be patient, and wait for them sniper trades. So I can see us possibly getting into some straight away, depending on how the market opens, or getting in some early on Monday. But ideally, it looks like we might just have to wait till Tuesday or Wednesday in the later part of the week, and I think we're going to have loads of trades. So have a great Sunday evening. Those in the UK, enjoy your bank holiday tomorrow. Everybody else, I'll see you in the morning. And as I said, have a great evening. Speak to you soon.